こんにちは、ジャパニーズアーモのミサです。Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to say I don't have to do something. So, we've already learned how to say I have to do something, which we used なきゃ or more formally なければいけません, right? So in English, you just negate I have to into I don't have to, and that's it. But in Japanese, you can't negate なきゃ or なければいけません because as you see, なければいけません. This いけません is already in the ません negation. You can't do like なければいけませんいけません or something like that. You'd have to use kind of a completely different form for don't have to do something. Anyway, if you want to say, for example, I don't have to eat, we'd say 食べなくてもいい。食べなくてもいい。So do you kind of recognize this てもいい on its own? てもいい. It meant I may, you may do something. We used this てもいい when we wanted to ask for permission or give permission, remember? So for example, may I come in? We changed the verb 入る, which means to enter, into its て form, 入って, and then put もいい, 入ってもいい, informally, and 入ってもいいですか? You put ですか because いい is an adjective. You don't put ます for adjectives or nouns, right? Must can only work with verbs. So you say 入ってもいいですか formally, or if you want to be informal, you get rid of ですか and say 入ってもいい入ってもいい So this ても I told you that it means even if. So てもいい literally meant is it good? Is it okay? Even if I enter. So you don't have to do something. You're giving permission not to do something. So you say なくてもいい. And this なく comes from the ない. So what you have to do is first you need to make the informal negation for verbs. So 食べる becomes 食べない, right? Because for either endings you get rid of る and put ない. So 食べない and you can't say 食べないて so you have to change 食べない into 食べなく and then てもいい食べなくてもいい So basically, if you want to say I don't have to do something, get the informal negation and then change the last い into く and then put てもいい just like you did for I may do something or you may do something. So when using this なくてもいい, first you have to make the informal negation and the exact same rule when making the informal negation applies to this なくてもいい. So for the either endings, you change る into ない. For other endings, you change the last う sound into あ and then put ない. So for example, かく becomes かない, right? But you have to be careful with verbs that have just hiragana う not consonant plus う sound but purely う So for example verbs like 買う to buy or 言う to say, you have to change the う into はない remember? And also regular verbs する becomes しない which is kind of similar to its must form します so it's not too hard to remember, but to come, remember? 来る becomes 来ない It's not similar to its must form at all. The must form of 来る is 来ます right? But the negation is 来ない If you master this informal negation, it's pretty easy to say, I don't have to do something or you don't have to do something. So 食べる becomes 食べない and then 食べなくてもいい, right? So how do you say I don't have to watch. So first you want to change the verb to watch into its negation. So 見る becomes 見ない 見ない. And then 見ない the last E has to become くて and then もいい見なくてもいい Without E 見なくても means even if I don't watch. And then E, okay. So even if I don't watch, is it okay? So basically it means I don't have to watch. So just to practice, how do you say I have to watch? You still use the informal negation, right? So 見ない becomes 見なきゃ informally and 見なければ見なければいけません So the formal version is really long. 見なければいけません But the informal version is simple. 見なきゃ But if you want to sound not so casual but not so formal, you can also say 見なきゃいけません So let's imagine two people talking. One says, do I have to watch? You can say 見なければいけませんか見なければいけませんか And then the other person says, no, you don't have to. So in English, you can omit the verb watch, right? You can just say, no, you don't have to, or no, you don't. But in Japanese, you'd have to repeat the verb to watch. So you can't just omit 見る or 見 part. You have to say 見なくてもいい。見なくてもいいです。But natives actually say 見なくてもいいですよ。よ We put the よ particle at the end. 見なくてもいいですよ。Do you remember we also put this よ particle at the end for the you may sentence? So like, you may eat, you can eat. We said 食べてもいいよ or 食べてもいいですよ. This よ particle is often used when you give permission or when you tell someone something new. This よ particle has many nuances. If, for example, put this よ particle after the don't form, so don't, we put the で after the informal negation. So like, don't eat, we said 食べないで, right? 食べないで, don't eat. If I say 食べないでよ with that sort of intonation, it's like, hey, don't eat it. Sounds harsher. But if I say 食べないでよ, then it sounds like you know you can't eat it, so don't eat, alright? In both cases, adding よ to this don't form sounds quite a bit harsh. Normally people would just say 食べないで or 食べないでね. Ne is like, isn't it, but also right. In this situation, 食べないでね means don't eat it, okay? So it sounds softer. You might think よ would sound harsh when you use with this てもいい, but it doesn't. The よ particle is always used when you tell someone to do something or when you give a listener a piece of new information. In some situations, it can sound like you are telling the other person what to do, so you kind of have to be careful. But with this てもいい, you don't have to worry too much. So just say 食べてもいいですよ. If you want to say you can eat, you may eat. And likewise, 食べなくてもいいですよ sounds fine. You don't have to eat, don't worry. So back to the conversation. Do I have to watch? No, you don't have to. You can say 見なければいけませんか? And then 見なくてもいいですよ。見なくてもいいですよ。You don't have to watch. Informally, you can say 見なきゃ or 見なきゃいけない, adding this いけない. So, 見なきゃいけない and the answer 見なくてもいいよ見なくてもいいよ You don't have to watch. How do you say you don't have to eat everything? You guys probably remember the word everyone, which is みんな. But if you want to say everything, you have to say 全部全部 So you can say 全部 don't have to eat 食べなくてもいいよ全部食べなくてもいいよ And then formally, you just put this. So 全部食べなくてもいいですよ全部食べなくてもいいですよ And if you want to say you don't have to eat it if you don't like it. So we never did this if construction because in Japanese it's a bit hard. In this case, you can say 好きじゃないなら or 嫌いなら So don't like, we say 好きじゃない and then hate, we say 嫌い right? And we have this word なら nara, which can be translated like if or in case. Anyway, for this one, just remember it like a phrase. If you don't like, you can say 好きじゃないなら or 嫌いなら and then you don't have to eat it. 食べなくてもいいよ。好きじゃないなら食べなくてもいいよ。What about you don't have to tell me or you don't have to say it? So the verb to say, we say 言う right? And then the informal negation of this 言う, do you remember? It's not 言わない but 言わない言わない So you want to say don't have to say 言わなくてもいい言わなくてもいい So for example, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. If you don't want to, you'd use the same nara. Do you remember how we make the want to or don't want to form? So first you want to say, I want to say. And this want to form, we use tai. But we use kind of the half must form. So you change you into e, like you do for the must form must. But instead of must, we put tai. So if you say tai, that means I want to say. But if you want to say I don't want to say, you don't want to say, then you have to negate tai, right? Tai at the end acts like an e adjective because it has got an e at the end. So do you remember the negation for the e adjectives? You change e into くない So 言いたくない is how you say I don't want to say 言いたくない And if you want to say if you don't want to say, you would add the nara after 言いたくない So you say 言いたくないなら言いたくないなら And then you don't have to say. So for this one, you don't use the want to form. So it's not いば言わなくてもいい right? 言わなくてもいい So the whole sentence, the if clause has to come at the beginning in Japanese. So you say 言いたくないなら言わなくてもいいよ言いたくないなら言わなくてもいいよ So 言わなくてもいいよ means you don't have to tell me, but people would only say it if you tell something short or one thing, like one fact or one secret, something like that. If you want to say you don't have to tell me a story or you don't have to talk about it, we would use the verb 話す to talk or to speak. So can you negate 話す? 話す becomes 話さない話さない So you don't have to talk. It would be 話さなくてもいい話さなくてもいい So 話さなくてもいいですよ. You don't have to tell me the story or you don't have to speak. But if you want to, for example, you don't have to talk about it. You can also add the word about it. So about in Japanese, we say について, something について. So this about is when you use like a story about or a book about, not like about 5 minutes ago, because that about 5 minutes ago, when you use with time, you want to use the word ぐらい, which means approximately. But in English, about can mean approximately or about something. So, but in Japanese, you have to use two different words. So ぐらい for like around 5 minutes, you say 5分ぐらい. About twice, you say 2回ぐらい. For example, I write about something. You say something について書く. Or I read an article about something. You say something について読んだ. Or if you want to say an article, you can say something についての記事を読んだ. Something についての記事を読んだ. So if you wanted to say a noun about something, you have to say something についての noun. So について acts like a noun, so you have to put the no particle to connect to things. But if you're using について with verbs, so just to read, to write, to talk, you don't have to put the no particle. You just say something について verb. But if you're going to put a noun after について, so you want to say an article about something, a book about something, a song about love, you always have to say something についての article, book, song. Anyway, to talk about something, you say something について話す. So talk about the news, you say ニュースについて話す. ニュースについて話す. And if you want to talk about that, talk about it, you could say それについて話す. それについて話す. But when we say like, you don't have to talk about that event, that matter, or that event where you did something, we often say そのこと, そのこと. This こと means matter or event or what someone did. So a lot of people ask me what's the difference between もの and こと. もの is a thing, but more like an object, so something you can touch. So if I say 怖いもの, then that's like scary thing, scary object, or scary existence. So like 怖いもの could be ホラー映画 or 雲 or 悪夢, right? But if you say 怖いこと, this is more about an event or action. So 怖いこと is like something scary that you do. So for example, bungee jump or skydiving or your mom yelling at you, something like that. So こと is more of an action, whilst もの is more about a thing, like something usually you can touch. Anyway, we will talk about this もの versus こと maybe later. But anyway, そのこと is like that thing that you had to go through or you did. So this one fits quite well for some, like, you don't have to talk about that. So for example, that person had an accident and he doesn't want to talk about it. I can say そのことについて about that. And then you don't have to talk. So 話す becomes 話さなくてもいい. 話さなくてもいい. And then we want to sound native, so we put yo at the end. 話さなくてもいいよ. So the whole sentence, you don't have to talk about that. You say そのことについて話さなくても いいよ。そのことについて話さなくてもいいよ。What about I don't have to wake up early tomorrow? So we want to use the verb to wake up, to get up. Do you remember? 起きる、起きる。So the informal negation of 起きる is 起きない、起きない。You just get rid of る and put ない。起きない。And then don't have to wake up. 起きなくてもいい。起きなくてもいい。And you want to say tomorrow, I don't have to wake up early. So you want to say tomorrow first. So tomorrow we say 明日、明日. And then early we say 早く、早く. Which comes from the adjective 早い, which means fast or early. But if you want to use with a verb like an adverb, so to do something early, you have to change 早い into 早く、早く. So tomorrow early, I don't have to wake up. We say 明日早く起きなくてもいい。明日早く起きなくてもいい。What about you don't have to do it? So change the verb to do. する becomes しない not do. And if you want to say you don't have to do, you say しなくてもいい。しなくてもいい。So you don't have to do it. You can say しなくてもいいよ。しなくてもいいよ。So for example, you don't have to study. You'd say 勉強しなくてもいいよ。勉強しなくてもいいよ。But you want to say I have to study, then 勉強しなきゃ informally and 勉強しなければいけません。What about you don't have to wait for me? So to wait, we say 待つ、待つ。And the informal negation of 待つ, do you remember it can't be 待つbut 待たない、待たない。This two sound always becomes た、た for negation. So 待つ、待たない、待たない。So you want to say you don't have to wait. You say 待たなくてもいい。待たなくてもいい。So 待たなくてもいいよ。If you want to make sure that the listener doesn't have to wait for me, you could say 私を待たなくてもいいよ。私を待たなくてもいいよ。But we often also say 私のことを待たなくてもいいよ。私のことを待たなくてもいいよ。So if you remember this こと, it means thing, but mainly what someone does, right? Like an action or event. So when you say 私のことを待たなくてもいいよ, although the translation would be the same, you don't have to wait for me, but it's kind of more like you don't have to wait for me to do something, or you don't have to wait for me to arrive. It's more about you don't have to wait for my action. What about you don't have to stand up? So to stand up, it's quite similar to the verb to wait. 立つ、立つ. So if you want to say not stand, you say 立たない、立たない. So you don't have to stand up would be 立たなくてもいい、立たなくてもいい. So you don't have to stand up. We say 立たなくてもいいよ or 立たなくてもいいですよ. And this なくてもいい, you can change い into 大丈夫, 大丈夫, which means fine or it's okay. So if I say 勉強しなくても大丈夫, you could still translate it like I don't have to study, but you could also translate like it's fine even if I don't study, or I don't need to study. For example, Light doesn't have to study because he's smart, right? You can say because Light is smart, he doesn't have to study. But this time let's use this 大丈夫, no problem. So it's no problem if he doesn't study. Anyway, first, because Light is smart. You want to say, ライトは smart. 頭がいい literally head. Good. ライトは頭がいいから because ライトは頭がいいから doesn't have to study. 勉強しなくても no problem. 大丈夫。勉強しなくても大丈夫。ライトは頭がいいから勉強しなくても大丈夫。So for example, if I want to say, you don't have to understand everything, I can use this なくても大丈夫. No problem, even if you don't understand. So, do you remember how we say everything? Everything we say 全部, 全部. So, 全部, and then to understand, we use the verb わかる, わかる. So, わかる, it has got the る at the end, but it's not いる ending. So you have to change る like other endings. So you say わからない for I don't understand. わからない. Even if I don't understand, you don't understand. We say わからなくても わからなくても. And then although you can put the word い, let's try using something different. 大丈夫 no problem. So わからなくても大丈夫。わからなくても大丈夫。So if I want to say, even if you don't understand everything, no problem. We say, 全部わからなくても大丈夫。全部わからなくても大丈夫。And some people are thinking about the よ at the end. 大丈夫 is often used for don't worry, no problem for others. You don't really have to put the よ particle, but if you want to, which you can, you shouldn't say 大丈夫よ, but you should say 大丈夫だよ, 大丈夫だよ. So again, this is like the と quotation particle situation. If you want to use the よ particle after a noun or an adjective, you have to put だ. So I said this よ particle is often used when you want to tell something new, but also if you want an attention or if you want to convince someone. So if you want to say, it's impossible, I can't do it, we often use the word 無理, 無理. And this 無理 is an adjective, 無理, not impossible. So if I want to say, but I can't do it, but it's impossible, I'm telling you, I could put the よ particle to put that nuance and say 無理だよ, 無理だよ. So the same for this 大丈夫だよ, like I'm trying to assure you that it's no problem. 大丈夫だよ. Make sure you put the だ particle if you want to put a noun or an adjective with this よ particle. Because you can actually say 大丈夫よ, but it sounds like an old lady speaking. So this is where a textbook would say it's a feminine speech. Though I would say most women wouldn't talk like that. It's mainly when you read a book or watch shows, Japanese women might say 大丈夫よ, but in real life, people don't really talk like that. Maybe old ladies, but at least young or not so old women would say 大丈夫だよ when they speak informally. You can imagine what it would sound like if a guy says 大丈夫よ. So you want to say 大丈夫だよ. I mean, even if I say 大丈夫よ, people would be like, what? Like, why are you talking like an actress in a drama? It's not just よ particle that you have to put the だ. It's also the ね particle. So if you want to say, it's beautiful, isn't it? You want to use the ね particle, right? But since beautiful is an adjective, きれいな you have to say きれいだねきれいだね If you say きれいね again it sounds weird Make sure to put the particle if you put noun or non-adjective in front of the ne particle, the yo particle, and also kara because lots to remember, but 頑張って。And this なくてもいい、なくても大丈夫 you can also use with nouns and adjectives, not just verbs. So if I want to say, it doesn't have to be perfect, we would want to change the adjective perfect into its negation. You would have ない at the end, and then you change ない into なくてもいい or なくても大丈夫. So perfect, we say 完璧な 完璧な it's an adjective. So you want to negate it, then you say 完璧じゃない完璧じゃない not 完璧くない because くない is only used for e adjectives. So 完璧じゃない is it's not perfect. But you want to say it doesn't have to be perfect. So you change 完璧じゃない into 完璧じゃなくてもいい完璧じゃなくてもいい It doesn't have to be big. So big we say 大きい大きい right? And then you want to change 大きい into 大きくない大きくない So it doesn't have to be big. You want to put くなくてもいい大きくなくてもいい So an adjective is always じゃなくてもいいAnd e adjective is always くなくてもいい If you want to use this, don't have to be form. So for example, the hotel room doesn't have to be big. Like, I don't need it to be big. So you want to first say hotel room, you say ホテルの部屋 You can say ホテル部屋 If you want to make it one word, ホテル部屋But ホテルの部屋 is as common, so let's use ホテルの部屋 So ホテルの部屋は doesn't have to be big 大きくなくてもいいホテルの部屋は大きくなくてもいい Alright, I hope this lesson was useful. Practice the informal negation if you find it hard. From that form, you can make so many forms. Have to, you change ない into なきゃ Don't have to, we learned it today. You change ない into なくてもいい Please don't do something, you put the で after the ない So you say ないで And there are actually a few more forms that would use the informal negation. So yeah, make sure you practice it. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to give a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And also I've got newsletter that I finally started using again. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter too. As always, I'm on Patreon. So if you want to support me, you can support me there. Alright, じゃあまたね。バイバイ。